Hello folks, Junkie Rock 13 here. Everything vaping related, it's Junkie Rock 13. My real name is Ross Sanders, and today we are going to take a look at the Kanger bottom coil T3 clearomizer sent to me from Vapor Alley for purposes of review. And I'm also going to do a little tutorial on how to rebuild the coil, the wick and coil for the Kanger T3 replaceable head. The replaceable heads are available at vendors, but if you would like to rebuild it yourself, it is possible. I haven't been doing a lot of videos lately for the past couple weeks because I've had some family things going on. Nothing crazy, but I just haven't had the time to do it. But I am back. I'm going to do a couple videos tonight, and I have a contest, not in this video, but the next video that I will be uploading. So stay tuned and check out that next video. And I do have about 5 or 6 giveaways that are going to be coming up within the next 10 days. So stay tuned. Get all your friends to subscribe and enter the contest. And check out the Kanger T3 right now. Let's get started. Okay, here is the close-up of the Kanger T3. Now the Kanger T3 is a bottom coil clearomizer that holds approximately 2.4 milliliters. Now the reason why this holds 2.4 milliliters and not 1.6 or 1.8 like its common form factor cousins, the Vision CE5 or the Stardust, the iClear from Anokin, and the Bowie clearomizer. The reason why it holds a little more juice is because it has a straight plastic tube as opposed to a tube that tapers off at the top. It's actually a little bit wider in diameter than these three over here. And you notice these three devices, the coil is up at top on all three, and on the Kanger you're not going to be able to see it, but it is at the bottom of the Kanger. And these devices, the mouthpiece or drip tip does unscrew and come off, and on the Kanger it does not come off, and you are settled in with this mouthpiece that comes from the vendor on the Kanger. Now I'm just going to pull these off and just talk a little bit more about the design of this. There is graduated lines up to 2.4 milliliters and a little silver ring here at the bottom of the mouthpiece and a silver ring on the bottom of the plastic also here. Now on the bottom, this is not 510 threading like, I'll just pull one more in here and just show you. Now this right here is the Vision Stardust. And if you notice around the positive post, there is threading right in there. Okay? Now the Kanger does not have threading here. It has threading in the ego skirt right there. So on your devices, it will not be threading into the top in here, but rather on the threads on the outside of the ego cone threading. Okay. A few more differences or designs of the Kanger T3 is the air is coming in 3 small little holes around this knurled section right there. There is one right there, one right there, and one right there. Now the way to fill these devices is you will need to tip them fully upside down and unscrew this knurled section, which will remove your coil, which is replaceable. And most vendors do sell these separately, and I will leave a link down below for these replacement coils. Okay, set that right there and just show you how it looks inside. You'll see the center tube going right up the center of the plastic tube right there. And in order to fill this device, let me just unscrew the last of my banana pudding from the plume room. You will need to tip it towards its side and squirt the juice down the side of the plastic tubing, not to get it into the center tube that will lead up to the mouthpiece. Now you will not want to overflow it past the top of that tube or past the top of that graduated line right there. Once it's filled, you can take your coil, put this center tube right here back into, line it up, can't see down there, and then just retighten it. Okay, and you will have it filled. Let me just wipe up the little juice that I did spill. Now you usually do not get any leaking or spillage when filling it up, but because I might have got some down the center tube, I did. But that is the basic design of the Kanger T3. Now I'm going to get right into rebuilding the heads if you don't want to replace them, or if you're just a person that likes to rebuild them themselves. We're going to rebuild this Kanger T3 replacement coil head. Okay, now your first step is going to be to pull off this little rubber silicone grommet piece right there, right off the center post. Then you're going to want to remove this little center air tube post right here. Now the way to do that is just by pulling and wiggling it just a little bit, and it will come loose. Okay, now the way this goes back in is it has to be lined up very straight, and it goes in between those metal round pieces right there. Okay, now when you come to this point, there is a top piece of silica that will just come right off, and you can dispose of that. And then you'll notice your coil is in there. I'm sure you're not going to be able to see it that well, but in order to get this out, you will need to flip it over and expose the bottom part of the coil head right here, And a pair of needle nose pliers always works really well. Just grab this little metal positive post and it will pull right out, and that little positive pin will come out. Actually, it looks like a little screw. You can put that over it with the other pieces. Then this little rubber grommet will need to be removed. So again, with the needle nose, don't grab it too hard, just grab a hold of it and give it a little tug, and that little rubber piece will come right out. Okay, now you can flip back over and grab a hold of the wick and coil, and there's your little wick and coil right there. Okay, you can dispose of that. Now, to rewrap a new wick and coil, I am going to use a piece of probably about 1.5 inches. Let me just push this off to the side. Probably 1.5 inches piece of 3mm silica, and then I will also be using a small piece of 2mm silica. Okay, now there is no set dimensions on how to do this. This is just the way I have found that it works best for me. I like wrapping my Kanthal around the 3mm, and you can use the 2mm as the top piece of silica, or you could do it the other way and wrap your Kanthal around the 2mm and put your 3mm on top of that. I know a few other people have used 2 pieces of 2mm. When I have used 2 pieces of 2mm, I have experienced a little gurgling and flooding of juice into the Kanger. So I like to use the 3 and the 2. Now I'm going to take my piece of 3mm silica, and I cut off about a 4-inch section of Kanthal. I like using a bigger piece of Kanthal because I like having longer leads at the end. And I'm going to go up about 1.5 inches to 2 inches, or around the middle of the piece of Kanthal. Put it right in the center of the silica and pinch it right there. Then what I'm going to do is just wrap the Kanthal around the silica, and I like wrapping it around 3 or 4 times, making sure they're spaced out nicely, not touching each other. Okay, and making sure they're not wrapped too tight or too loose. Okay, so there's about 3 to 4 wraps around the Kanthal, or around the silica, excuse me. Then what I'm going to do here, push that little piece over there, bringing back in this bottom main section of the head, and taking these 2 leads of Kanthal and just sending them right down the center, making sure they go through. Okay, it's kind of hard doing it off to the side. All right. And the other thing you want to be aware of is when you put the wick or the coil into this little housing, you want to make sure that your ends end wraps don't touch this metal housing right here. So you want to position it in the center as close as possible. If these wraps are touching the outside tube, make sure you move them in closer to the middle, because that will cause it to short out. Alright, so now you have your two pieces of Kanthal coming out the bottom of this housing. We're going to grab that little rubber grommet piece right there. Okay, and this is very important. You want to make sure that you put this rubber grommet piece, the bigger piece or the smaller piece, in first, and you want to put it one lead in the center hole of this rubber piece, only one, and the other one will stay on the outside. Now, because it is so far in there, it might be hard with the leads in here trying to get it positioned in that hole down in the bottom. I like using the end of the dental tool here, or a pen or something, and just try to position it over into the center and push it down into there. Now when you do that, the Kanthal might get pushed in a little bit, or the wick, so you're gonna have to give it another little pull down, making sure that your wick and coil stays in place. Okay, and now the other piece, which is this little screw looking center post, I'm going to grab my needle nose and grab a hold of that piece and put it right in, oops, the center, oh wait a minute, of that. Okay, only when I make a video things fall around. Alright, line it up again in the needle nose, put it in there and give it a little push. There we go. Then just push it the rest of the way in there, making sure it's all the way down. Then you will have to pull down on the leads again. That's why I like having a little extra length on the wires hanging out the bottom. Pull it so it's nice and positioned correctly. Okay. And then what you'll need to do is, these scissors work really well getting down close enough to the positive post, and you want to cut that extra piece of lead off the positive side, or the negative side, and then over here on the positive side, making sure that they are cut as close as possible so you don't have extra little pieces hanging out down there. Alright, we're almost done here now. Now, before I even put this back on, I'm going to throw this on my Provari with an Ego adapter. And I just want to look and make sure, oops, make sure that this coil is not hitting the side and shorting out. Okay. Alright, let me see if the reading will come up. 1.6, 1.7. Let me just darken this up so you can see that. Sorry about that. Provari is always hard to see. .6. Okay. Now I just want to give it a look and see what that coil looks like in there. Make sure it's not touching the ends. Okay. Looks nice and spaced out. Everything's glowing right. Okay. So now I'm going to take this back off the Provari and take out this Ego adapter. And now I am going to place this 2mm silica piece directly on top of the coil. Okay, now what this does is it makes it so there is no juice, or not too much juice, coming in and flooding it, because there is always juice on top of a bottom coil. Where the top coil, you will have to tip it and the juice will lead up the wick. This is actually directly around it, so you don't want it to be flooding all the time. So you will take your positive, or excuse me, your center tube, your air tube here, and line it up directly in the center there, and kind of wiggle it back down all the way into pit place. Now you want to make sure it goes down all the way, or you will get flooding and leaking. Then take your little rubber silica grommet there and place it right over the top there. Last step you will need to do is cut off any excess silica. You want to get it as close as possible. Okay, so there you go. There is a rebuilt Kanger replaceable head. Okay folks, so there you go. There's the Kanger T3 and a tutorial on how to rebuild the replaceable head. I've had very good experience with the Kanger T3. It's not a hard device for new users to use, and it performs very well. I think if you want to rebuild the head or the coil, it is not a hard task to take on. Being that the replaceable heads are only a few dollars, some say I'll just buy the replaceable head. It's easier, throw it in when I get a little off flavor, and 1, 2, 3, and you're done with, you know, you're vaping easy. I have no problem replacing or rebuilding. It seems just as easy to me to take out a wick, wrap it, and throw it in. Plus I like doing it. Otherwise, the replaceable heads that come with it and the heads that are installed, or excuse me, the replaceable heads that you can get to put in here and the heads that are installed in the Kanger T3 perform great. The head that's in here right now is a Kanger head. It is not the one that I replaced or rebuilt, excuse me. Let me show you how it vapes. I have this set at 3.7 volts. Let me make sure. 3.7 volts on an iTaste VV. And the juice that's in here is an 80 PG, 20 VG. So there might be a little less vapor production with this juice. Still great vapor production. Flavor and throw ahead, great. Nice vapor. No dry hits whatsoever. You can chain vape this thing crazy because the wick is on bottom. It's a bottom coil clearomizer. The juice is always covering the wick, and as long as when you rebuild it, you do not have the wick choked. If it's not too tight in there, you will get enough juice in there and it will stay wicking perfect. If you do decide to use 2 pieces of 3mm wick in there, it does choke up a little bit and you will get a dry hit. But with the 2mm and a piece of 3mm, it has been wicking perfect for me. Great flavor, great vapor, great throat hit. I've been impressed. This came from Vapor Alley. I have been aware that some reviewers have been saying that the T3 has been tasting like plastic, or the replacement heads have been not up to par. They've been changing. I have not experienced any of that. But this replaceable head and Kanger T3 came from Vapor Alley. So I don't know about other vendors, what batch they have. They might have a new batch, or Vapor Alley might have a new batch. They might have an older batch. I'm not sure. Or they might not even have Kangers. I'm not sure. But I have not experienced any of that. I'm going to put in the head that I rebuilt and talk a little bit about that. Now, I have not noticed any difference between the two, okay? Now, I will say that I have rebuilt a coil on the T3 where it did not perform correctly. For whatever reason, I might have wrapped a wire and it crossed over and touched another coil or another wrap. But usually, every time I rebuild a Kanger T3, it works perfect. This is the one that I rebuilt on camera just a couple minutes ago, and I have it set at, let me lower the voltage because it's set at 1.6 volts, or it's reading 1.6 ohms, excuse me. And I'm going to push this down to 3.6. Let me see how that is. Now it's tasting great. Vapor's great, throat hit's great, flavor's phenomenal. It vapes awesome. No dry hits whatsoever. You know, give it a try if you want to try to rebuild it. I suggest you try with a little different formations. Maybe you want to use 2 pieces of 2mm wicks, or use 1 piece of 3mm wick. Try different things. You know, it's all about trial and error. I have been enjoying rebuilding the Kanger T3, and it's been performing great. I've been impressed with it, and I think for new vapors, this device and other new clearomizers like the Inokin iClear dual coil clearomizer there, these 2 clearomizers have really turned the clearomizer world around. It has been a blessing for new vapors to have something so easy perform so well. That's what I got on the Kanger T3. Be kind to one another, folks, and keep on vaping. Remember, I do have quite a few giveaways coming up. I have one following this video tonight. I have another video coming, uploading. And that's a contest, and I have about 5 more contests coming up within the next 10 days. So stay tuned, make sure you subscribe, and keep on watching, everybody. Take care.